Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, we're going back to Chicago and hearing more, Chicago winged cryptid and Moth-Man encounters, folks. This time, I have two great stories that take place directly in the city. We'll start with the first article. Towering winged humanoid confronts little village woman. Its chilling scream still haunts her. Let's get into this article and hear how this woman encountered the Moth-Man. Something terrifying stepped out of the shadows on Millard Avenue that night, its glowing orange eyes fixed on a lone woman just trying to get home. What unfolded in those 10 seconds of paralyzing fear raises more profound questions about the winged presence that has stalked Chicago for years. On Monday, September 12th, 2017, at about 10:30 p.m., Central Time, I was leaving work and walking down the street toward Millard Avenue in the Little Village neighborhood of Chicago. I stopped at a store to pick up a couple of items I needed for home and then continued on my way, turning left into Millard Avenue. And it wasn't any ordinary route, folks, at least not tonight. She was about to encounter something she couldn't explain and has haunted Chicago for years. But not just Chicago, folks. People have seen Moth-Man, not just in Point Pleasant, but all over the world now. And she was about to have her own encounter right now. So let's continue. As I walked, I noticed what appeared to be a prominent figure with enormous black wings and glowing orange eyes. At first, I thought it might be a large owl, but as I got closer, I realized it was at least 7 feet tall. I'm 5 foot 4 inches, and this creature towered over me. It stood there, staring directly at me for about 10 seconds, making a sort of chirping sound as I approached. My first thought was that this was the devil, so I began to pray as I continued walking. I kept moving because I felt that if I stopped, I would become paralyzed with fear. When it was about 20 feet away, it let out a deafening screech that sounded like a warning. Then it leapt into the air and flew off in the direction of West 25th Street. I watched it disappear into the night as I continued to pray walking home. So, she thought it was the devil, folks. Maybe she's one of the, people in Chicago. I would imagine maybe there are several who don't know about the Chicago Moth-Man sightings, folks, that have plagued the city for years, as the article puts it. So, I'm not surprised that she thought it was the devil, but let's continue. When I arrived home, I was hysterical and crying. My family rushed to my side. Upon seeing me sobbing uncontrollably, I told everyone in the living room what had happened, and my grandmother suggested that it was either the devil or La Chuzia. She said that either way, I was fortunate to have made it home and that my prayers had protected me from this entity. That night, I slept with the window locked, the curtains drawn, and a light from my desk on. Despite sleeping with the lights on, I still dreamed about that horrific creature and that it was coming for me. I prayed to God that I'd never see it again, and I now know that my prayers protected me from whatever it was. So, very terrifying, folks. I can imagine our witness here was completely terrified for what happened to her. I can imagine myself basically starting to pray to God if I encountered something like this, folks. But there's also commentary, so let's read that as well. The witness reiterated her account multiple times with no variation. There was no embellishment, no added detail, and no attempt to dramatize what she had seen. Even 48 hours after the encounter, she remained visibly shaken, her emotional response consistent with someone who had experienced an alarming event. Based on her demeanor, the clarity of her answers, and the consistency of her recollection, I believe the witness encountered something anomalous that evening and that her testimony is credible. She also mentioned that others in the surrounding neighborhood have reported seeing what they call un Diablo Negro, or the Black Devil, in the Little Village area. When asked if she could direct me to any of these individuals, she hesitated and declined to share further information. Her reluctance appeared rooted in fear rather than uncertainty, reinforcing the impression that these sightings carry a long-standing and quietly acknowledged presence in this community. So, very terrifying, folks. It looks like people are now basically giving pet names to the Moth-Man, or, whatever this entity might otherwise be, folks. I think indeed it's the Moth-Man. Either way, very interesting, folks, and very telling of what people are now dealing with the city in Chicago. Either way, let's continue with the next article. Chicago Moth-Man sighting near the Harold Washington Library leaves witnesses shocked. Let's get into this next account of an encounter with the Moth-Man, folks. On a warm July night in 2017, a downtown Chicago commuter encountered something perched above the streets that defied explanation. The sighting occurred near the Harold Washington Library, an area where multiple winged humanoid reports emerged during the peak of the 2011 to 2018 wave. What happened next stunned both the witness and a group of nearby teenagers, raising new questions about what truly moves through the city after dark. I would have to say, folks, let's continue now. I left work around 8:45 p.m. Central Time on Thursday night, July 27th, 2017, in the Loop, which is the central business district of downtown Chicago. As I walked 2 blocks to the nearest train station to head home, I noticed a large bat-like creature perched on top of one of the street light poles across the street from the Harold Washington Library. This creature stood about 7 feet tall and remained motionless. So that is and does track with what we know about Moth-Man, folks. Them being about 7 feet tall and are known to have been seen standing or basically perched on various objects. Sometimes they stand on people's roofs and look at people, folks. But now, let's get back to the article. It had a pair of glowing red eyes that seemed fixated on something across the street. It sat there for about 6 seconds when I noticed a flash coming from a group of kids on the sidewalk as someone was taking a picture of it. Suddenly, the creature spread its enormous wings, flapped them a couple of times, and took off into the air. The girls in that group screamed and ran away. I watched as it shot up and over the library, disappearing in just a couple of seconds. I was very shaken by what I had seen and spoke to my pastor about it at church on Saturday. He directed me to the site to report my experience. Thank you. Now, folks, that does sound very phenomenally interesting to have happened. Do you think that these teenagers will also come forward with their stories? Either way, here are a few maps and, well, pictures of the area where this sighting took place. This took place in Harold Washington Library Center, the Chicago Public Library. Very interesting, folks. Here's another picture of a Chicago map where the incident took place. Once again, showing Harold Washington Library Center. Here's a picture of the Harold Washington Library Center itself. It looks like the kind of place where something like a Moth-Man would just sit up home and perch on and frighten people, doesn't it, folks? Either way, here's some commentary. This report aligns closely with several other Chicago Moth-Man sightings in 2017 that describe a tall, dark, bat-like entity exhibiting perched behavior before a rapid vertical ascent. The glowing red eyes, sudden takeoff, and emotional shock felt by multiple witnesses reinforced the consistency of these encounters. The proximity to the Harold Washington Library and the Loop, a hotspot for earlier and later sightings, suggests a possible travel corridor or energetic focal point. The rapid acceleration and silent flight continue to support theories involving interdimensional or ultra-terrestrial origins rather than a biological cryptid. So, is this entity perhaps from another world, folks? Another universe? Or is it some sort of cryptid that, well, somehow has remained unidentified by science? Some sort of animal? I kind of have my doubts, folks. It sounds far too intelligent to basically be an animal. Because I've read stories where these entities clearly display intelligent behavior. Either way, whatever it is, it's certainly a very fearsome. But with the first story, folks, with this entity basically being heard to basically make chirping sounds, that is, well, something I've heard about in other stories in the Chicago Moth-Man legend, folks, where these entities basically make these chirping sounds, like they're, well, birds. Now, Moth-Man has been described as a bird-like entity, at least in the Point Pleasant encounters, folks. So, with the Moth-Man encounters in Chicago also having this entity basically making chirping sounds, I'm not surprised. So, very interesting, folks. What do you think this entity actually is? An alien or some sort of interdimensional interloper? We don't know. But, folks, we're now at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics that are bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Now, folks, hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that'll give you all future notifications. And please, share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.